Runs 3 stadia. According to our speculatores, Ponthinus leads the charge.
Keep the soldiers distracted, Caesar. I will handle Ponthinus.
Ad Victoriam!
Et dabo vos in consumationem!
Meet Jugurtha! She wishes to make your acquaintance!
You'll be in the north soon! Prepare yourself!
Come, Jugurtha! Charge! The gods have entrusted me with your demise! You are but a gnat in our great plan! Oh, how I wish you could see yourself from such a thing! Fire! You still can be done with this! Be free of this battle!
Your role in that insane order comes to an end, Ponthinus. Face your judgment.
They went too far in Siwa. I knew it then. But I just wanted peace for Egypt.
Your peace leaves many wanting.
This is inevitable. A good rule always does. My apologies, Bayek of Siwa. My fee is covered, it seems. Now may I go to my glory.
There is no glory left in Egypt.
The damned eunuch is no more. Good. The speculatores found Septimius. He is in the village beyond. I will distract his men while you capture him. We must know what he plans.
You would think your spies would already know.
They have their limits. But they claim Aya has the scent of that puppet king. So they also have their uses.
Then Ptolemy is already caught. I will finish the rest.
The fool finally comes. You will see your gods soon. Bayek of Siwa, we finally fight. Are you ready for your end?
Prepare to face judgment, Septimius. You will find yourself in the Duat soon.
No wonder it was so easy to take your country.
Keep talking, dog! You will find my fury soon! You call this an attack?
Your baseless attempts to fight. Stay down.
I will rip your heart out and feed it to the crocodile, Septimius!
Did you miss me?
Stop, Bayek! Septimius is Roman. We will deal with him under our laws.
He killed my son!
The Pharaoh is dead!
Well, at least at the end game, we are finally starting to heat things up a little bit. The boss fight with Ponthinus and Septimius was one of the two interesting points in the game, where I see Origins threaten to become slightly more interesting than a sack of potatoes. This is at the point where Cleopatra has seduced Julius Caesar, and he is dealing with his own conflicts on the Egyptian front, trying to solidify things and, get rid of the opposing forces and all that jazz for Cleopatra's benefit. So we get into the Battle of the Nile, where things kind of get full scale and warlike. The problem is that the warlike things that happen only happen in cutscenes, and otherwise is just boiled down to the same Assassin's Creed sandbox we've been used to forever now. But hey, at least it threatened to be interesting. It tried to shake up the formula a little bit. I mean, this was the boss fight we had where we were finally getting to fight a war elephant. And they tried to fudge the non-fiction a little bit and made the war elephants badass rather than their more realistic, timid counterparts. I'm sure you can find accounts somewhere in history, in these ancient times, that war elephants were not actually all that useful because they were afraid of getting hurt and were incredibly easy to divert from the enemy forces they were brought in to crush. So I don't think that in this game you would be able to get away with a long, trudging battle where the war elephant's feet would be hacked up enough to the point where he really should have ended this boss fight on 2 legs. Unless he was getting jazzed up with some sort of ancient grade elephant growth hormone and PCP that they just had lying around. I don't know. Maybe the elephant was being fed with 50 corpses every day. I don't know. But it is the boiled down half-assed Dark Souls ripoff that we've come to expect at this point about 12 hours into Assassin's Creed Origins. Yeah, it's a little bit more interesting, a bit more involved, it's a bit more creative, but it's still half-assed in all degrees. The war elephant doesn't have the power, the stopping ability, to actually crush Bayek and make this a difficult boss fight. And his attacks are incredibly easy to dodge, even with AC Origins' shoddy dodging ability, where you really can't tell how you're going to dodge, where you're going to dodge, what the distance is, so you can't really plan ahead for it and just kind of have to hope for the best. Also, his attack repertoire is incredibly limited for something that's trying to be a Dark Souls boss. He's got the usual stompy when you're close to him, and then he just headbutts you and charges. But it's all incredibly easy to move away from. Plus, if you really want to and have the agility, you can do this boss fight entirely archery style. There's an infinite amount of arrows all over the battlefield. And then, once you finally get through that, because like the other times that Ubisoft tried to do Dark Souls bosses type things, they made it too long, they made it too repetitive, so it got really boring about halfway through the health bar. After that, we move on to Septimius, who is the Roman soldier who seems to be the general of this opposing force that's trying to overthrow Cleopatra, kill Julius Caesar. I don't really know what the Battle of Denial was all about, but we do get the boss fight with Septimius. Septimius's boss fight doesn't really fare much better than Ponthinus's did, because his weapon, almost exactly like him, his weapons and attacks are too slow to actually be able to kill the player. He's very trudging, he doesn't even move as fast as the War Elephant, he can't get around the battlefield, he doesn't have any charge attacks, and really, using the style of attack that he does really allows the player to just attack him at your leisure, which in a game with regenerating health does not work. Because all you need to do is move away from Septimius for a little bit and you get a bar of your health back, and then you can go run in and hope for the best and try to attack him through his God of War rip-off knives, and if you manage it, good for you. If you can't, well, run away and try again. I don't think archery is really going to help you in this round, but if you can manage it, then again, Septimius is so slow that you can really just dodge all the way around him and have infinite potshot opportunities. It really is just a matter of time, and there is no skill in this boss fight whatsoever. A lot of the problem with Ubisoft trying to rip off Dark Souls is that it doesn't have any difficulty in it whatsoever, because of that fact that it has a regenerating health system and not a fixed health system with healing items that would make this infinitely work a lot better. It wouldn't work 100%, but at least it'd be better to the thing that it's trying to rip off. The other problem is that because these bosses are just so generic and nothing is said about them before or after the boss fight, or at least enough to make them stand out, they really just turn into forgettable damage cubes. All you need to do is keep damaging them until they fall over. They're not going to stand out. It's not worth it to actually fight them. There's no stakes in this battle whatsoever, because Ubisoft hadn't written the story with any stakes in mind, or trying to convey the actual situation that they're in at the moment. So it's just two boss fights back to back that don't do anything interesting, that don't play very well, that don't do anything to stand out, don't do anything at all. There's nothing to these bosses. Although I will give Ubisoft a tiny little bit of credit and say that the twist ending after this boss fight, which was the first ending that AC Origins could have gone with, before it decided to just tack on a bunch of epilogue stuff to finish up the game and just end up with 4 different moments where it could have ended but decided not to. The twist ending being that once the Battle of Denial was over, Cleopatra decided to side with Septimius and Julius Caesar. Yep, Cleopatra sided with the Templars, completely betraying the assassins who she's worked for forever, just because she needed to cozy up to Julius Caesar. I don't really know what to say about the betrayal. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but it does work for what it was trying to do. It's just that it doesn't feel like there's any weight to it, doesn't feel like there's any consequences, and I think that might come from the sandbox not changing, or not really any adversity added to Bayek and Aya suddenly becoming enemies of the state. Hell, they even decided to try and rip off the Metal Gear ending from the 1980s, where they just tried to fob off Bayek and Aya by paying them to leave and saying that their mission was over, but they decided to keep going on against Cleopatra's newfound Romanism because of moral superiority, and form the assassins in order to defeat her Templar wily ways. But like I said, Ponthinus and Septimius threatened to make AC Origins slightly interesting for a few minutes, so I can credit them with that, even though they are incredibly generic, standardized Dark Souls bosses, even by Dark Souls 2 standards. They didn't try to do anything difficult, challenging, satisfying, or really stand out, set piece, or anything that a boss fight should be. It's just waiting around, waiting for your ultimate ability, or just waiting to get some pot shots in through your bow, or running up to the enemy and running away. There's no cleverness, there's no strategy to this, it's just do it because Ubisoft said so. So, thanks again Ubisoft for wasting my time.